journey from just being me, and you're listening to the Learning to Love Yourself podcast, the show that inspires you to put yourself first.
Learning to love yourself on the path to happiness. Learning to love yourself on the path to happiness.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we have the fabulous Nicola Stock with us, who's going to talk to us a little bit about how her life ran along one direction and needed to change another. Welcome, Nikki.
Hi, Jenny. It's really great to be here with you. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, me too. We've already had a little bit of a one, haven't we? So you need to be recording. So tell us a little bit about what your life was like and what led up to the moment of change.
Okay. So I guess, let's roll back quite a few years. I was in my 20s. I'd been living abroad. I could have gone to university to study law, and I had a bit of a moment which was, oh my God, that's a long time to still be in education. I think I want to earn some money and go traveling, which is exactly what I did. So from the age of sort of 18 to 24, I had a bit of an idyllic life where I was living in Europe, working for 9 months of the year and then traveling for 3. And it was all fabulous. So I did India, South America, all those amazing countries. And then I woke up one day in America and thought, oh, I'm nearly 25. I need to come home and get a proper job, as you do. And I came home, and within 6 months, I'd met my partner, Colin, who was 11 years older than me. And I think that was probably a good thing, because I was probably needed someone to keep me level and calm and grounded. And I had a job I worked for Bupa, then I worked for American Express. And then in 1992, we moved up to Cambridge, and I decided that I wanted to start a family. So we started a family, and I left a very, very successful job in American Express. I was European sales manager when we left, and decided I was going to be a stay-at-home mum, except I wasn't, because I got a bit bored. And Colin said to me, I think you need to do something. What do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. And he was working for a company at the time that was a distributor in fast-moving consumer goods. And they got a brand called Banana Boat Sun Care, which if you go to Boots or Tesco's or anywhere like that today, you will still see it on the shelf.
Ah.
And that was me. I had that brand. So basically the distributor took it over and then asked Colin and I to handle it just as a standalone business. So we set up a distributorship, and I was given the brand. And when we started it, it was turning over 75,000. And 9 years later, we had it turning over 6.9 million.
Wow.
So my background was very much sales, marketing, talking to the big boys, talking to the likes of Tesco and John Lewis and Waitrose and Asda and World Duty Free, and managing a really big brand with a really good marketing budget. And that was fantastic. That's what we did, just the two of us. So Colin was my life and business partner. And when people say, how the hell did you do that for 9 years? Because we get up in the morning and go, have a nice day. And then I'd drop the kids off at school, and then I'd see him in the office and say, morning. And but it just worked. It worked because we already had. So when we talk about what I do now, we were already sort of doing that. I hate the word work-life balance, but we were designing our lives.
Yeah.
Because one of us wanted to be at the school gates.
Yeah.
It's really important to us.
And it's creating your life around your values, isn't it? And that's the place that I create my life now.
Exactly. It's always about creating life around values. So that was always in the back of my mind. Anyway, that business was sold by the owners of the brand to Wilkinson Sword. And so we had to start another business. And Colin, don't ask me why, but randomly decided to buy a pet food wholesale warehouse. As you do. As you do. And I thought he was having an affair because he was being really furtive about all these conversations. But it was because he knew that if he told me what he was doing, I would have said, absolutely not. Are you mad? But actually, he wasn't mad because, as we know, what do people spend their money on? Their children and their pets. And in fact, sometimes they spend more money on their pets than they do on their children. So we bought this business out of administration, and the vision, the dream was that we were going to turn it into a mini Pets at Home or a mini country store, and then maybe buy another one and eventually have 6 around East Anglia and just sit at the top and manage it. So I went into the business as sort of setting up the retail side. But unfortunately, 6 months into that business, Colin went into hospital for a routine surgery. Well, not routine. He was having rotator cuff surgery because he'd had a skiing accident. And when he came out of the surgery, I was sort of sitting staring at him, and I could see a lump on his neck. And I said, "Got a lump on your neck?" And he was, "Have I?" Must have been when they went into the shoulder. And I said, "No, it's too high. It's too high for the shoulder. I don't like the look of that." Mentioned it to the doctor, and the doctor said, I think we're going to get that checked out." And so that was the Christmas of, 2012, Christmas 2010. And he was sent for some tests and everything. And we had to sit all over Christmas waiting, wondering what these results were going to be. And in January 2011, we got an appointment through, and straight away I knew it wasn't going to be good news, because it was the Woodlands Centre in Cambridgeshire, which is actually a cancer centre.
Okay.
So we knew before we even got there. Well, I knew he was still in complete denial. And so Colin got diagnosed with a very rare blood cancer called mantle cell lymphoma. There's only about 5,000 cases in the world at any one time.
Wow.
And they will tell you that it's incurable but treatable. And the goal for treatment is to get you to have a stem cell transplant, because if you get the stem cell transplant, that can normally get you 10, 15 years. So our life sort of changed in January 2011 when he was diagnosed. And his chemotherapy was brutal. He wasn't just going in for a day. He would go in for a week, and he would have 4 days of continuous infusion.
Gosh.
So continuous infusion, 72 hours of continuous infusion.
Wow.
And by day 4, he would have what was called a cetarabin headache, which meant that he couldn't have any lights on in his room. He needed to be, it was like a migraine on steroids. And that was every 3 weeks. So that was happening. That was in the January. And then in the February, my mum got diagnosed with womb cancer. And in the March, my dad went mad. He had trauma onset psychosis, which was a madness on a completely different level. So my life was then about keeping him upright, supporting my mum, because she couldn't support my dad because my dad was mad, and my dad couldn't support my mum because he was mad, and just doing everything. And I think in the May, I did 3 hospitals in 3 counties in one day. Literally, I was dropping one off, going to the next one, taking them to an appointment, taking them back, picking one up. And I remember getting home that evening and putting him to bed. He'd been in for some platelets, I think, and going to the field behind my house and just sitting in the middle of the field screaming, because I didn't know. I just didn't know what I could do. And I wasn't getting any support because he was in a private hospital. So I fell through the Macmillan net, which was a real shame. So that was my life for about a year.
Wow.
And he got into remission, and we went skiing in the Christmas of 2011. We did I said to him, "What do you want to do? Do you want to go away?" And he said, "Yeah, we'll go skiing." Fantastic. But I started to feel quite unwell over that Christmas period. I was quite breathless, wasn't feeling great. We got back in January, and I could tell that he wasn't right either. And I said to him, I think it's come back, because he had a 95% good remission, and we were on the stem cell, waiting for the stem cells. And he said, "No, it hasn't." I was like, "Oh, it has." Phoned the consultant, said, "Look, can you do me a favor? Can we just get a scan? Because I can hear it on his chest." And the consultant said, "Nikki, you're mad. It won't have come back that quickly." And I said, "Okay, maybe I am, but hear me out. I just need to know." Sent him in on the Monday, phone call Tuesday. It's back. He's got to start chemo again. So that was January the 27th. February the 14th, 2012. I took him into hospital for some platelets. And as I was leaving, one of his nurses said to me, you don't look very well. And I said, I'm fine. I'm just tired. And as you know, when you're looking after somebody,
Yeah, last you, don't you?
at the lost,
Yeah.
you're the carer.
Yeah.
And she said, no. She said, you're not just tired, you're not well. She said, your lips are going blue. You need to go to see your GP right now. So I thought, okay, right, I'll go because, so I managed to get an appointment. And very luckily, and this is really important to anyone listening, the person I saw at my GP's was not my GP. It was a locum. And this locum didn't really know what was going on. So this locum treated me as a person, not as the partner of the patient I was looking after.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
didn't put it down to being a
Being
carer.
tired. Yeah.
Actually looked at me as a real person and had all these tests done. And by the time I walked back into his office, he was on the phone phoning an ambulance saying, yeah, we need an ambulance. And I said to him, you're really busy, I'll come back. And he said, the ambulance is for you.
Wow.
I was, okay. Well, actually, I can't go in an ambulance because I've got to go and pick Colin up from a hospital and I've got the kids. And he said, look, you need to go. And I said, well, can I just get someone to help me? And he said, look, as long as you go in within the next hour, I'll let you go. So made some phone calls, got everything sorted. Friend took me into hospital and I didn't see anyone then for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Because I went in on the Tuesday. I was in a respiratory ward. One of my friends came to see me. Colin wasn't allowed to come and see me because he was neutropenic. On the Friday, my oxygen level was so low. I think my saturation was less than 60% on 12 litres of oxygen. And my friend, who happened to be a resus officer, came to see me, took one look at me and pressed the button. All hell was broke loose. And there I was being wheeled down to intensive care, where I begged them not to knock me out. And they said, we need to knock you out because you're not breathing properly. And that was that. That was the Friday. And then on the Sunday, I got so ill that they sent a motorbike to our house for Colin to sign papers to allow them to get an ECMO retrieval team to take me to Papworth Heart Hospital.
What's an ECMO retrieval team?
An ECMO retrieval team is the sickest COVID patients. Remember when we had COVID and they had all the sickest COVID patients lying face down, prone, and they had their lungs completely bypassed. So ECMO is extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, which is when they completely bypass your lungs to help them work again. And they needed that team to come and take me back to Papworth and put me on ECMO. So then I was put into a proper coma and had a complete lung bypass.
Wow.
And that's because I had pneumonia. I had complex pneumonia and multiple infections on top of it. So my lungs had stopped looking like lungs. They looked like a couple of breeze blocks and they weren't moving at all. So I was moved on the Sunday night, but he had to give permission because they basically said, if she doesn't move tonight, she will die tonight. If we move her, she could die on the journey. But if we don't move her, she's definitely going to die. So he had to give them permission to move me, which he did. And they moved me. And then on the Monday evening, he got another, my neighbour who was nursing me came around and said, you've got to take the kids in the morning because she's not going to survive another 24 hours. So the kids came in, said goodbye to me on the Tuesday morning, and then went to school.
Oh my goodness.
Lucy was doing her A-level drama exam, or mock or whatever it was. They went to school. And at that point, Colin was on his own still at home, trying to look after the kids, have his chemo, do everything. And then by the Friday, it was so bad. I was hanging in there, so I was still in there. So by the Friday, it was so bad that his sister came and moved in to look after us all, or look after them all. And I was just left in the coma for days and days and days. And people, apparently, I'm going to tell you now, if you're ever in a coma, or if you've ever got someone in a coma, don't bother going talking to them because they can't hear you. I can tell you that for sure, because I wasn't, had loads of people coming to talk to me. And I had any recollection of any of that. I have a lot of I have a lot of white light experiences, but no recollection of anyone coming to see me. And after 2 weeks, the consultant phoned him up and he said, well, you've not gone anywhere. And he said, oh, that's a good thing. He said, but we don't know what we're going to have left when we take her out of the coma, because we don't know how badly starved of oxygen her brain was. What do you want to do? And Colin said, well, take her out. You know, we've got to know where we are. So they took me out and he came to see me, and with a very croaky voice, I said to him, I'm going to paraphrase it, but it was something like, what the hell are you doing here? You should be having your chemo. And he said, she's fine. I wasn't fine, but I was, you know, I lost a lot of my vocabulary. You know, I couldn't remember certain things. I would tell my son to go and hoover the lawn, and he'd be like, do you mean mow? I'm like, yeah, that's what I mean. And I had, you know, I was actually still I stayed in hospital for another 5 weeks. I was moved through critical care, high dependency, everything else, moved to Addenbrooke's Hospital in the end. And yeah, so I came out after 6 weeks, and 10 weeks after I came out of hospital, Colin died.
Oh my goodness. Oh my good. It's a roller coaster. It's wow.
So yeah, so I came out of hospital weighing just over 5 stone, because obviously I hadn't eaten, and I came out of hospital with my Zimmer frame, which I loved. It was my comfort blanket. I went everywhere with my Zimmer frame. And yeah, he just got worse and worse and worse. And he went in hospital for a lung drain on the Thursday, and he died on the Sunday. It was that quick. So there I was. It was June the 3rd, 2012, widowed, in my 40s, 2 teenage children, a business that we'd bought out of administration. I wasn't married to my partner. So again, to your listeners, do not believe there's anything like common law. It doesn't exist. No ring, no rights. Didn't get his pension, his private pension, because we weren't married. I just got a refund of his voluntary contributions. Had I been married, I would have had a pension for life, but I didn't. So there I am, £250,000 mortgage on a house, business in administration, well, that we bought out of administration, 6 staff that I was responsible for, 2 children, weighing 5.5 stone, staring into space, thinking, how has this happened to me? Why? Why?
Well, look at your strength, Nikki. Look at your strength to get through all of that.
What choice do you have?
Yeah. Lesser people would have just gone, I can't do this, and let it all go.
I think there's always this thing about responsibility, isn't there? I was responsible for 6 families' income.
Yeah.
If I'd have just turned around and gone, do you know what, I'm just going to shut this place down, then that would have been 6 families, 6 lots of kids that were all not going to be having.
But also a perfectly understandable reaction with what you were going through.
Yeah.
We're sitting here thinking that's 6 people's, but that's also, you know, you were just trying to get through you with you and yours.
Yeah, but I've never been one to just like roll over, I suppose. So
That's why I'm saying, look at the strength. Look at the strength.
yeah. So I said to the kids, right, this is how it's going to be. We are no longer a 2-parent family. I am no longer going to be a mother. I haven't mothered you for the last year because I wasn't present. I was busy looking after their father. So I said, so from now on, this is a house share. It's going to be like friends. There's a diary on the bar. We're going to be very respectful of each other's spaces. You can have friends round, friends can stay, but it has to be in the diary. I need to know who's in the house, what we're going to do. Dan was coming up 15 at the time. I said, Dan, you're going to come and work for me every weekend. You're going to have to come and work with me because I can't do 6 days a week on my own. So you're going to have to come into the warehouse at the weekend. I said, Lucy, you're going to have to do, you know, this, that, and the other, which they all took on their roles brilliantly. I think it traumatized. I mean, my son is still paying the price now at 27 of losing his teenage years, really. But we just decided we were going to be the 3 musketeers, and we were going to pull together, and we were going to get rid of this business, which I hated. Can't tell you what we used to call it, but we did it. And I set about scaling it to a level where I could sell it. And I did it within, I think it was 18, 20 months, working 6 days a week. Absolutely hated every minute of it. But I looked at the figures 1 month and I thought, wow, it's turning over 1.8 million.
Gosh.
So
Wow.
I'd taken it from administration to 1.8 million. Not high margins, so not massively profitable. There was very tight margins in that business. So it wasn't, but it had a value. And so I phoned one of my suppliers and said, "Oh, Simon, it's Nikki. Don't suppose you want to buy my business, do you?" And he said, "Yes." Oh, okay. Because I just went to one of my biggest suppliers who I knew had similar businesses. Never in a million years expecting him to say yes. And he went, "Yeah, how much do you want for it?" And I literally said to him, "I have no idea. Leave it with me. I'll come back to you." Phoned my
You hadn't even thought about the price you wanted because you weren't expecting him to say yes.
because I was just kind of fishing. I was just going, "Oh, I had a list of people I was going to ring," and he said yes, and I really liked him. So I phoned my partner's best friend and I said, "Oh my God, I've got a buyer for the business." He said, "Right." He said, "I'll come over tonight." And we literally sat in my kitchen with a piece of paper. It was literally back of the fag packet. He said, "Right, how badly do you want to sell it?" I went, "Really badly." He said, "How much do you want out of it?" I said, "What I paid for it and a little bit more, and enough for me to have a year off without actually having to worry about life." So he said, "So we have a ballpark figure." And we went and we gave the figure to the guy, and the guy went, "Yeah, that's okay. Probably could have got more. Didn't really care." Got it all done, dusted, 6 weeks, walked out, went home. And that's when the recovery started.
Yeah. Time for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how wonderful in your thought process there was for you to go, actually, I need a year. I need a year to basically do the recovery that I should have done.
Yeah. And also selling the business enabled me to pay a lump off the mortgage, not all of it, but it allowed me to pay a lump off the mortgage, which then took the pressure off me financially for a bit. And it gave me enough to pay a lump off the mortgage, invest in something. If I wanted to invest in something like another business, actually, I bought a franchise and live. So when you say what prompted this whole change, that was it. And I knew moving forward, I never ever wanted responsibility for staff again.
Yeah.
I just didn't. I hated that weight of, if it all goes horribly wrong, it's on me. But also, I am now responsible for all these people's lives.
Yeah.
So I don't have staff. I like outsourcing, but I won't ever have staff.
Yeah. I have to say, I'm right there with you. Right there with you.
So does that. And then also it was about, okay, you've had the big corporate career, you've had the £7 million business, and we did very well out of it, and we had some really good salaries. We bought the house in Spain, but that never got finished because we bought it just before Colin died. So that actually stayed empty for 13 years, just with a roof on it and the windows in, nothing inside it at all, because I didn't have the headspace to deal with it. And it's a very complicated backstory to that. And so then I thought, right, what am I going to do? And I thought, what do I want to do? And I always knew that I wanted to help people. And I felt that with all my business experience, I could see things very, very clearly. I'm quite an instinctive person.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought the Women in Business Network. And I set up a local networking. And I had 10 groups and I had 150 women. And I loved it because I do business support topics every meeting. And then out of that, a couple of them came to me and said, "Are you a mentor?" And I was like, "Oh, no, but I can. I think. I don't know." And so I was really lucky that I was able to test my mentoring on people. I didn't put it out there. That's what I did. They asked me.
Yeah.
And that's lovely when someone asks you, because you can say, "I can do it, but I can't, let's see how this is going to work." And that's how I fell into what I do now, really.
So tell us what you do now then.
So what I do now is, I mean, if you follow me anywhere, it says straight talking strategist. And that's because I am not the person that's going to blow smoke up you. You know, I am just going to tell you how it is. Because
You weren't having smoke blown up you either, right? It doesn't
no,
me, does it?
and I think the thing is, I think when you can see things really clearly and you know you can save somebody a world of pain or money or time or energy or whatever it is, you're going to tell them, don't do that. That's a waste of time, energy, and money. You're better off doing this. So I work with, literally, they are all solo entrepreneurs, and it's all about creating a profitable and sustainable business that works with the life you live.
Yeah.
So we flip it. It's never about the business. We always start with the life and what you want your life to look like, how you want that to work, and then how the business can fit into that. I don't know about you, but most of the people that I speak to, when I ask them why they've started their business, they will say they want freedom.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's what we all want, isn't it? It's the freedom to choose.
Yes, it is. But the reality is they start this business because they want freedom, and they end up living a default life of eat, sleep, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
And they don't create themselves a business. They create themselves a job.
Yeah. In which case you might as well go and let somebody else take the responsibility.
Exactly. So I am all about not creating yourself a job, creating yourself a business. And when you look at your life design, we treat it very much like as if you were a product engineer. If you were designing a new product, designing a new car, you prototype things, don't you? If you're designing something, you build a prototype, you test it, then you refine it. And that's what we do with your business and life design. We prototype it. We play with it for a couple of months. We try it on for size. Well, that's actually not quite right. What do we need to change? And eventually we get to something that is really, really workable. And then we can start building out from that. So it's a bit of life architecture.
So do you love this? Do you
I
love what you do?
absolutely love it.
Because it's one of the things, isn't it? Is that, I took 2 weeks off over Christmas, the first time I've ever been able to take 2 weeks off. But I couldn't actually take 2 weeks off because I like doing what I'm doing. So therefore, it was like, saying that you really love playing tennis, but you're not allowed to play tennis at all for 2 weeks. Why? Why can't I do that? Because when you love what you do it, don't you? Because it doesn't feel like it's a strain. It doesn't feel like it's something you need to take time off of.
I always take time off. I love what I do, but I am very much about balance and having those. Because I died twice,
Mm.
I am on my second life, and my
Mm.
second life has to count. And so my second life isn't about work. My second life is about generating enough income for me to, for example, I'm in Mexico for the whole of February. That's
Right.
a nice thing to do.
Absolutely.
And I am working from Mexico. I have got 6 things in my diary whilst I'm there. But for me, it isn't about the work. The work gives me a purpose. But right now, it's all about living for me. Yeah.
And I would absolutely agree with that. But for me, part of doing there's no way I can sit on my sofa watching a mindless bit of TV when there's something I really want to do and I really love to do is there in the other room and I can go and do it. I, like you, I'm in Italy for part of February, working from Italy because I can. I've created the life that means that I can go and do that.
Yeah.
I'm going and I'm meeting up with people, but I'm working during the day and I'm seeing them in the evening. But because we've created businesses that work for us rather than us working for the business, it does mean that we can go and do these things, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I
And
think
it's that creating a life like that, isn't it? It's creating a life that works for you.
yeah. And I think where I sort of, because I've got a legacy project, which is my passion. So I like my business, but my legacy project is my passion. That where I make space in my week, my month. It's launching this month, and that's going to be. It will be everywhere. You will just see it all over my socials, and that will be my passion piece. So when I've got a bit of spare time, when I'm not playing tennis, doing yoga, traveling, and that is what I'm going to be working on. because that is the reason why I didn't die.
Yeah. And we allowed to know what it is, or
Yeah, it should be out in a couple of weeks. When it depends really when this goes out. I will share it. So basically, I didn't have survivor's guilt,
right?
but I did wonder why I was the one that lived and Colin died. And the obvious reason was because I had 2 children,
Okay.
and yeah, that's why you survive. But I spent a lot of time, a number of years, I kept questioning it. Why didn't I go? Why didn't I go? Why didn't I go? And then it occurred to me that when I was in my coma, our lives completely imploded. So stuff that you and I, like women just do naturally, didn't get done. And the thing that broke my heart and made me realize that I had something to tell the world was when one of my son's friends came round, his mum came round to speak to my sister-in-law who was looking after the kids. And she said, "You do know Dan's not had any school dinners since Nicky's been in the coma." And Pauline said, "Why's that?" And she said, "Because Nicky didn't top up his biometric catering finger." Because I happened to go into a coma at half term, which is when I do all the topping up of the finger.
But the school didn't recognise this?
The school didn't know because nobody had thought to tell the school that his mother was in a coma. It's just like nobody thought to tell them. And Dan didn't want to tell them because he didn't want to create a fuss and be the centre of attention, the boy whose mum's dying. He didn't want to be that person. So his best friend was paying for his lunch when he could, when he had enough money on his finger. And then eventually he said to his mum, "I've run out of money because I've been buying Dan." So that's how it all happened. And it occurred to me that we all talk about end of life planning, and we've all, hopefully people have got their wills and their little books with secret stuff in, but we don't plan for those situations where we have to exit the family, whether that's for a week, a month, 6 months, or sadly, permanently. And it's the little things that get missed. So there wasn't a Nicky manual in the cupboard for Pauline to run by. There wasn't anything that said to her, "All right, you've got to do cashless catering. And our typical weekly shop is this." And if we were talking about Dan when he was 5, it would have said, there would have been a bit about Dan. It was said, "Dan's 5. Please don't get cross with him because he likes to wear his socks inside out because he doesn't like seams. And oh, by the way, you need to cut all the labels out the back of his t-shirts because he doesn't like that. And he doesn't like peas touching anything else on the plate. So should we do that? He has an asthma inhaler. He needs to take that to school. He won't go to sleep without Tinky Winky," and all those other things that we know. But if we are suddenly not there and nobody else knows that, how does your child have continuity of care? And it's not just your child, it's the dog, "Oh, the dog's got a skin condition. He has to have this special cream. You can only get it from this place." Whatever. Or your dad, my dad's in a care home. I pay the care home fees. Do they get paid if I'm unconscious? No, they don't, because nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
All that stuff. So I've created a life manual for people to download, complete, and then there's a company that they have it printed out with. They get a binder, they put it in their kitchen cupboard, they put it somewhere safe. They have a little kidney donor card, but it's a life manual card so people know where it is. They get a reminder every year to update it. As I update it, look, it's a lifetime thing. You get it for life. And every download will trigger a donation to a charity that supports people with loss. And the charities, it can be any charity. So if anyone's listening and they've got a charity that they would like to support, whether it's a hospice, whether it's it's any kind of loss. I think there's something like, did you know, this is a horrible, horrible statistic, 1 in 4 children will lose a parent before they reach the age of 18.
Gosh, that is a horrible statistic. That is.
That is the statistic. So if we think about that, that means that a lot of people are going to need this manual.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of charities that support children that have lost their parents. So when we talk about loss, it's about if you're facing end of life, so hospices, It's people supporting people with cancer diagnoses. It's children that have lost parents. It's parents that have lost children. I think the impact of one person having a stroke, I think it impacts about 100 people, one person having a stroke. Again, if you imagine, if you've had a stroke and you've lost the
power of
ability to
speech.
speak, or how are you going to tell people what needs to be done?
Yeah.
If you've got a life manual, at least someone can go, oh, okay. And it's also, who do I need to tell that this person's had a stroke? Which clubs is she members of? Which it's all in the manual. And yes, it's going to be an absolute pig to fill out. It's going to probably take you all weekend, but it's the one thing you can do to secure your family's future.
It sounds like a very important. I've done a lot of work with in the elder remit, and the amount of people that don't realise that you need to get power of attorney, that needs to be in place while somebody can make that decision. You know, the amount of things that happen at that end of life that you need to do before, whilst there's all the choice capability.
Oh, you know, that's in the life manual as well, how to do power of attorney, because let's face it, I was unconscious. Colin didn't have power of attorney.
Because you weren't married.
It doesn't matter even if you're married. Even if you're married, power of attorney isn't a given. You still have to have it registered.
Really?
Yeah, don't think that because you're married, it's power of attorney is power of attorney. It has to be a legal document. So at that point, if they wanted to turn the machine off, he would have had to fought them for it because he didn't have power of attorney. It wasn't my husband. So
Scary, isn't it? The things that you assume.
There's so much that people assume that they don't know. And I kid you not, the reason this has taken so long to come to fruition is the amount of research I've had to do, because some of the stuff is very, very simple. And then when we get to the more complex stuff, I've had to make sure that I've got all the correct information. And then when it comes to things like your passwords and stuff like that, I've found different ways that people can save a password, whether they want to use a password saver, whether they have just an encrypted file on their laptop. It's all the minutiae of everyday life that we just assume we're never going to need, but it could happen to any one of us at any time.
And it's not always about illness, is it? You know, I've always been, you never know when you're going to get hit by a bus. You know, you have to be prepared for that to happen. You know, we're talking on the anniversary of my breast cancer operation. Was I expecting that to happen? No, I wasn't expecting that to happen at all. I'm just not an ill person.
No.
You know, that's not the sort of thing that happens to me. It happened. We dealt with it. We're a year on, you know, but I can remember at the time thinking, watching, you know, telling my children, watching them and thinking, I can see them going, oh, hang on a minute. Suddenly we've got to be responsible for all of these things. And I can remember thinking to myself, do they actually know that my husband is allergic to peanuts and they can't do they know these things that you know, that we found out over time? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know, thank God you've come through the other side of it. But even the other way,
yeah, there is no guarantee on anything, is there?
Absolutely none. And I think it, you know, it hit home with me a few months ago. My financial advisor was on holiday in Ibiza, and his flip-flop caught on a stone step and he fell backwards. Catastrophic brain injury, died there and then. Young man, married, 2 kids. His wife hasn't got a clue about half of the stuff.
No.
You know, and when I talked to him, she's, oh God, if only he'd have done what you're doing. Our lives would have been so much easier. But I don't think until you've been through it that you appreciate that you need it. So I think that's going to be the challenge of getting the message out there. But hopefully we will.
Well, this is another way of getting out there, because it will be out in the world by the time that this comes out. So, Nikki, I want to thank you so much for coming on today and telling us your story. And it's just inspirational seeing where you've gone with that and what you're going to do out of because you've learned so much from it, haven't you, to be sharing that to the world.
I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And, you know, when I think about it, I think, why me? But why not me? And as a very good friend of mine, actually Andrew Mellon said, she said, you had to go through this to create what you've created. She said that this is your path and you just have to, you have to follow it.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I had the same conversation this morning whereby sort of, there's an awful lot of things looking back in my life. And you could say, I wish they hadn't happened, but if they hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I am today. And today and yesterday and several days before that, months before that, I'm very, very happy. Very, very happy. Which actually, when I look back on all of those traumas that occurred, it feels worthwhile. It feels worthwhile.
Yeah.
Because I know what I know now and I am who I am now.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
If anybody wants to find out about anything that Nikki's up to, connect with Nikki, all the details will be below the podcast. And just go and get in contact with her. I'm sure she'll be really happy to have a chat with you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jenny.
Are you feeling stuck? Do you want to be able to create a better conversation with yourself, but just don't know where to start? I offer a free 20-minute session to see where you want to be and how to get you there. Just click on the link below. Remember, it's free. Book your space. It could change your life. Thanks for listening today. If you'd like to know more, you can find all the links down below. Oh, and don't forget to press subscribe so you can catch the next one. See you soon.